Well, folks, I really can't tell you how nice it is to be back. I haven't done a restoration in a really long time, and I've missed doing them, and the reason I haven't been doing them is generally just because I've been working on the layout and other projects, and I've just been busy, so I haven't been doing as many. But there's one project that I think you guys will really like to see done, and that's what we'll be doing today. So anyways, here is what we're going to be working on. These are my Wabash sea liners. If you guys have been on this channel for a while, you'll recognize these. In case you don't know about them, basically, I got them both separately. One I bought for $6 at a train store, the other I got in an eBay lot. And they both had contacts on the other side, so I daisy-chained them so they're permanently attached, making a double unit. And they were working, except for whatever reason, I gave the one that has the good motor the bad transmission. It was because the one that had the bad motor didn't have a transmission, so I just put it on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bad transmission with the motor that's bad, because this one doesn't run, it's just a dummy, and we're going to swap them so we can get it working. Anyways, new thing for our restorations. This was a gift that was given to me from M&M Rails quite generously. What this does is it's a little foam cradle. And when you're working on model trains, basically what you can do is you can flip these upside down and it holds your train for you, which I'm sure some of you guys probably think this is really good, because it is good, because before obviously you just had trains sitting directly on the table and it's bad for details and whatnot. So anyways, we can work on them better now. Yes, I'll readjust the camera so not half of it's just foam. Okay, camera readjusted. Let's begin taking these units apart. I've got my wonderful dollar store piece here. Never mind, that's not flatheads. There we go. Now, as I remember quite distinctly, these engines are not very pleasant to work on, so we'll see how it turns out. I remember it mostly being a problem due to basically the bad truck being quite hard to work on, but I guess again we'll have to just find out. Might have just lost a screw. The good thing is when they land on this, they don't go flying everywhere. Make sure that... yeah, okay. The nut was slipping. Now I've almost got this thing taken apart. And there we are, we're inside. Here's our problem right here. This gear slips out of the socket because this is zinc rot right here. What zinc rot does is it causes the metal to expand, so it's allowing this gear to get out of place, and then it jams and seizes the entire locomotive. So what we're going to do is put the zinc rotted gearbox on this locomotive, because it doesn't really matter if this one has zinc rot. It's just a dummy engine. Just as long as it can hold together, I'll be fine. And I've also put so much crazy glue over that. Really, the metal is just a mold for the crazy glue at this point. There's probably more crazy glue on that than there is zinc. This is going to be interesting. See, I can't twist this far enough to access the screws, so I'm just going to have to get some pliers or something. I don't know why I did them differently on both sides. It was a poor decision, but I did it. Now I have to clean up my mistakes. Managed to get the two nuts to come undone. It wasn't that tricky. I just used a pair of pliers, so I just edited that part out, because there really isn't a point to it, I don't think. Now I should just be able to take these both off, and the whole transmission should pop apart. Then we transfer the gearbox slash transmission onto the other engine, and yeah, hopefully it will all work. This engine hasn't run in a long time too. I don't even remember if I put any lubricant in it last time, which is a big no-no considering how old the motor is. Definitely needs a lot of oil. Yep, we're in. Look how much better this transmission looks in comparison to the other one. You can see so much better the condition actually is. Anyways, we're gonna have to figure out a way. This gear worm is the part where the trouble usually is, because as I remember, there's a small screw, and getting that thing out is tricky, and getting it back in is way harder. So we'll see how that goes. I think on the new one it's not so hard because everything's where it should be. Yeah, there's the screw. There we go. So there's our worm gear. And now we just need to do a similar procedure on this one. I might cut this part out because it might take a very long amount of time to figure out where exactly it is. Got the screw out, so now we can pull out the worm gear on this one. I can already tell, I think I'm going to put this worm gear on the dummy version, just because it just looks to be in worse condition. So here's our newer transmission. So much better condition. And I'll just put that on there. And we'll start to reassemble all of this. Something seems wrong. Here's what was wrong. I was trying to get this piece to go on here, and it wasn't going on properly, and the reason for that is because I forgot this motor, it actually tilts. So what we need to do is we need to kind of hold it well. We work on the worm gear at least. I think that's as far as it can go. And we'll take our, that's the worst one. There we go, there's the one that's in better condition. Now this is the really tricky part, and it's going to be trickier on this one. I need to put that little screw through. I'll show you guys why this is so tricky. You need to get this little screw through the hole of the transmission, into the worm gear, and then there's another hole, which is the motor shaft, that it has to screw through. So getting all those things to line up is very tricky, and I've had major grief in the past trying to do this part, because you have to get it just right. I don't think these are a magnetic type of screw either, so you kind of just need to go by gravity holding it on. Okay, so I just made off very lucky. That went in the first try, but this one's not going to be that easy, I guarantee you. I was just, dumb luck was on my side for that one. I'm now going to put the truck onto this one. I know it's the most painful part, but I'd rather get it done sooner rather than later. I did, by the way, find the magnet. I thought it hadn't come with the magnet, but I remember that at some point while I had this thing, I had taken out the magnet. So, yep, that's the story of this during its early days of ownership. I'll do little things on engines sometimes and forget them, but it doesn't make a difference. I don't think that motor is significantly better than this one. So now, oh, the screw's gone for this. Oh well. Now I need to get that through, like so. There's our worm gear. So remember how I said dumb luck was on my side last time? Don't think it's going to be this time. I have to watch it too not to lose this screw, because if I do, it's so tiny, I might not see it again. Okay, so I can see through onto the other side, which means I've got them all aligned. The tricky part is getting the screw in there while they're all aligned. Yep. Crap. I stopped filming, but I think I got it in. Unbelievable. That only took me 3 tries, and believe me, that was very lucky because there have been times where it's taken me like 10. It's a very tricky thing to do. But I did it, so that was lucky. Okay, so I've just realized... Okay, I think I need to put the wheels in like this. The problem, this side of the wheels are connected, you can tell because it's made of metal. This side's not, because you got a little plastic insulator. You have to make sure that you get them in on the right side, because if you don't, you'll either get an engine which will not power up, or you'll get a short circuit, both of which are bad. Okay, so we've got that transmission all back together. Now we're going to make some lubricant. So what we're going to be making is a mixture of roughly 2 parts grease, 1 part oil, optimally all synthetic because it will last longer. And what this does, it's basically, instead of just putting raw grease right on the worm gear, you just make a slightly thinner version of grease, which is more optimal. So got a few drops on the olive oil, now we just stir it up. And in any lubricating video, even from Labelle themselves, they actually suggest something kind of along those lines, which is basically you put grease on the worm gear and you also put oil on the worm gear, and they'll just mix from turning. But if you do this, you'll just guarantee that it will be a very even mixture. Also, worm gears spin at a very high RPM, you know. Model train motors, I think, can do 1,600 RPM, which I think is 25, yeah, it'd be about 25 turns a second, so it can just all fire off. But if you mix it beforehand and apply it directly on, it will just stick better and will hopefully stay on and do its job. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just putting a nice coating. And really, you only need to put a grease oil mixture on the actual worm gear for just gearboxes. Only put oil where there's friction being all the bearings, and just put oil if you don't need grease. Grease is just, you need a thicker lubricant for something that has a lot of friction, but for very low amounts of friction, you can just use oil. And there we go. It's applied somewhat evenly. Doesn't have to be perfect because it will self-mix a little bit, but yeah. And then for oiling each bearing, I say it in so many of my videos, don't even put a drop. You just want a very thin layer of residue around the whole thing, and that will be enough. They really don't need much oil. Because if you over lubricate, it will actually put more strain on the motor, because there's more fluid to move. And we'll put, you can see right here, there's a little bearing at the bottom. This is actually what the worm gear sits in. We'll just put a very small amount of oil. Actually, I'll put a tiny bit of that mixture in, because there would be a spot where there might be a significant amount of friction. So we'll just put some in there, and it should be all good to go. Should have a satisfying click with these Rivarossis. If not, it means that the worm gear might not be sitting in the bearing, and if it's not, you're going to have problems. It needs that bearing to stay steady. There's a little screw and it prevents the trucks from tilting out like this. You can remove it for doing maintenance because basically it will just allow you to turn them to an angle where you can get these screws on quite well. Now, as I remember, I think there's one screw that goes in a certain side, so we'll just make sure we got, I think that's the right one. I think this one goes on this side. Yeah, that seems about right. Let's take our, tighten that side up. Okay, so we've got that all put back together. Now we're gonna run a little electricity, just make sure it's all actually working right. So I've got my life light controller plugged in here. Set it to full power and see if this all works. Oh, that's trouble. Why aren't we getting any motion? Well, crap. Looks like the spring jumped ship at some point. In no way can I recommend doing this, but this is I believe it's a Bachmann or a Lifelike spring. We're gonna try to drop it in there and see if we can get it to mimic the Rivarossi one, because I have no clue where the Rivarossi one's off to. This may not work, but we'll try. I can't get this wire up there. Well, it's in there all right. Everyone cross your fingers. Nope. Oh, wait. Oh, we had motion there. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Check this out, guys. Look, no motion. You can see the light's bright, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's running. And then it stalls. And it starts up again. So unfortunately, that little brush is too short, I believe, and it's not making perfect contact. But I think I can put another brush on top of that brush, and I don't know, it might work. Well, it's running now. So I've got another brush, so we're going to put it in there. That will just be a little secret that we won't tell anyone. Of course, that also means we have to get this bloody brush out again. Crap. Actually, I don't want to take that out. Okay, that works. So, put that in there. Seems better. On those wires, there we go. Hey! Well, it's not terribly healthy, but it's running. I declare this locomotive come back together. Wow, look at that, it's all back together. That totally wasn't a lazy way to get out of a lot of editing. Anyways, let's go run this thing. Okay, so we've got her all set up on the track. The controller I was using that claims to be a 16-volt controller. It's pretty old, I think it's lost a few, so it's more like 14 volts. This one's more like 19 volts. So everybody cross your fingers, this might just do it. Oh boy, complete short. Oh! Come on. Yeah, arugula, arugula, arugula. Yep, she's doing it. Whoops. It's powering along. It's struggling, but it's doing it. Oh, will it make it around the corner? Probably not. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, look at her go. Oh, she's really powering. Wow. Well, I mean, the current's through the roof, but it's running, and it was higher earlier, so the motor's actually gotten healthier just by running around a bit. Well, Double Spike Productions, I said I was going to get this thing running at some point soon. I hope I lived up to that promise okay. Yeah, look at her go. I'm kind of in disbelief right now. When I tested this thing on my workbench, the motor was barely turning over, and now it's on the track pulling another locomotive, and it's like wide open. It's crazy. I swear, guys, that current keeps dropping. It's running more and more efficiently. Check this out, guys. So we're running her at full power. For a motor that has had a very tough life and was probably built in 1960, that is quite remarkable, let me tell you. Well, folks, that's going to be about it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Before I finish off the video, I want to give 2 shoutouts. The first shoutout is to Joe G, who's a great member of the community. He runs a channel where he kind of uploads his projects. And the reason I want to give him a shoutout is because he's getting very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. So we need to give him as much support as we can. So I'll put his link in the description. And I also want to give a shoutout to Double Spike Productions, who is the one who kept pushing me to finally get this done, because I've been procrastinating on it for a long time and needed a bit of encouragement for it. But we've got them done now, and I'm thrilled. I really didn't think this was going to be the result. I thought another fail video was going to be going up, but at the end of the day, it wasn't. And we've got 2 C-liners back up and running again. So thank you guys for watching. Hey folks, check this out. I extended the track right here, so that way they can just sit right here on the siding instead of on the shelf, where they're a little bit more liable to be dropped because they're both double units. So, yeah, they've got a new home now.